हिंदी में ट्रांसलेशन हो देखूंगा अगर मैं अंत में थोड़ा सा 5 मिनट में आपको समरी बता दूं.
And today I am going to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, part 4. I will be reading text number 13, 14 and 15. So will everyone repeat after me? एवं स्वभराणकल्पम् तत्कलत्रादयस्तथा नाद्रियन्ते यथा पूर्वम् किनाशा इव गोचरम् तत्राप्य अजात निर्वेदो भ्रियमाण स्वयभृते जरयोपत्ता वैरूप्यो मरणाभिमुखो गृहे आस्ते अवमत्य उपन्यष्टम् गृहपाला इव आहरन् आमयाव्ये अप्रदीप्ताग्निर् अल्पहारो अल्पचेष्टिता Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before, even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, though he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. Purport by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Not only in the present age, but from time immemorial, no one has liked an old man who is unable to earn in the family. Even in the modern age, in some communities or states, the old men are given poison so that they will die as soon as possible. In some cannibalistic communities, the old grandfather is sportingly killed and a feast is held in which his body is eaten. The example is given that a farmer does not like an old bull who has ceased to work. Similarly, when an attached person in family life becomes old and is unable to earn, he is no longer liked by his wife, sons, daughters and other kinsmen, and he is consequently neglected, what to speak of not being given respect. It is judicious, therefore, to give up family attachment before one attains old age and take shelter of the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that the Supreme Lord can take charge of him and he will not be neglected by his so-called kinsmen. Family attraction is so strong that even if one is neglected by family members in his old age, he cannot give up family affection and he remains at home just like a dog. In the Vedic way of life, one has to give up family life when he is strong enough. It is advised that before getting too weak and being baffled in material activities and before becoming diseased, one should give up family life and engage oneself completely in the service of the Lord for the remaining days of his life. It is enjoined therefore in the Vedic scriptures that as soon as one passes 50 years of age, he must give up family life and live in the forest. And after preparing himself fully, he should become a sannyasi to distribute the knowledge of spiritual life to each and every home. Before meeting death, one is sure to become a diseased invalid. And when he is neglected by his family members, his life becomes less than a dog's, because he is put into so many miserable conditions of life. Vedic literatures enjoin therefore that before the arrival of such miserable conditions, one should leave home and die without the knowledge of family members. If a man leaves home and dies without his family's knowing, that is considered to be a glorious death. But an attached family man wants his family members to carry him in great procession even after his death. And although he will not be able to see how the procession goes, still he desires that his body be taken gorgeously in procession. Thus he is happy without even knowing where he has to go when he leaves his body for the next life. So please repeat after me. Thus the unfortunate man, please repeat after me. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others, do not treat him with the same respect as before. Even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Thus he remains at home, just like a pet dog, and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses, such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food, and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. Om Agnan Timirandasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yene Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master Srila Kirtananand Swami Bhaktipad has opened my eyes to the torchlight of knowledge. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Kirtanananda Swami iti namine. Namaste Sri Bhaktipadaya Prabhupada Priyate Leela Kshetram Param Dham Stapitam Yena Paschimi. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So these three verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam actually very typically describe the position of a person who has fulfilled his useful portion of his life, socially useful portion of his life. Actually, everybody lives life in different stages. In the beginning, one is a student. Then one enters household life. In the third stage, one begins semi-retirement from life itself. And the last stage of life is termed to be renounced life. According to the scriptures, the lifespan in Kali Yuga is said to be 100 years of age. And these 100 years of a man's life in Kali Yuga are to be divided into 4 quarters. From the age 0 to the age 25, one is considered to be living as a student or brahmachari. After the period of brahmachari is over, you have a period from the age of 25 to the age of 50. And from the age of 25 to the age of 50, this period is known as Grihastha Ashram. That is the period of household life. The third period of life, which starts from the age of 50 and goes on till the age of 75, is termed as Vanaprastha Ashram. That is, this is the period of life when one lives like a hermit. One is supposed to withdraw from external activities and prepare oneself for the final stage in life, which is known as Sanyas Ashram. which is supposed to begin at the age of 75 years until the end of one's life, which is supposed to be at the age of 100. So here in these 4 verses, Kapila Dev is describing to his mother the position of a man who is unwilling to leave the second ashram and progress to the remaining 2 ashrams in life. That life is supposed to be a gradual transition. It is a transition from studenthood to household life, from household life to the life of Vanaprasth, and from Vanaprasth life to the life of Sanyas. And if one does not move from one ashram to the other, then this is a picture of the life of a person who has held on to the second ashram without progressing to future ashrams. So sometimes when people hear this, they get great comfort because they feel, I heard the lecture, and in the lecture he says I have to take sannyas at the age of 75. So I am very safe. Because who knows whether I live till the age of 75 or not. And since I may not live to the age of 75, I am spared the thought of even wondering what sannyas ashram is like. So I can only repeat the words of my spiritual master, Kirtananand Swami Bhaktipad, who said that although in Kali Yuga one is supposed to live 100 years, because of abuse of our body through our bad habits, most people do not live beyond the age of 70. So he said, therefore all of us should plan our lives so that we should die at the age of 70 and divide our life into 4 quarters, with 70 being the ultimate stage. That means, he said, that by the age of 35, you should be willing to enter into Vanaprastha ashram. And that means sannyas comes a lot earlier than you expected. So, before we go into understanding what is sannyas ashram, and before one jumps into sannyas ashram, one should have a clear understanding of what is sannyas ashram, what are the obligations of sannyas ashram, and what types of sannyasis are there, how should one take sannyas, and what is the behavior of a sannyasi. Now, the Vedic scriptures are very scientifically planned. So scientifically planned means they are planned by God. Actually, the Vedic scriptures are not the utterance of ordinary men. The Vedic scriptures are said to be Shabda Brahma. Shabda Brahma means they are the words of God. So just like if you should go and you should buy a microwave oven or you should buy a television, you will get with it an instruction manual that tells you how to use the microwave oven or the television set. So also when the Lord creates this universe, He gives us an instruction manual on how we should live life. And this instruction manual on how we should live life is said to be the Vedic scriptures. So the Vedic scriptures are the utterance of God. And because the Vedic scriptures are the utterance of God, we must take them with complete and absolute faith, and we should try to model our lives after the Vedic scriptures, because that is the only way we can know peace. It has been said by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Yah Shastra Vidyam Utsrijaya Vartate Kama Karata Na Sa Siddhim Avapnoti Na Sukham Na Param Gatim. One who discards the injunctions of the scriptures and behaves according to his own whims. He knows no peace, he knows no happiness, he knows no perfection, and he does not know the final destination. Therefore, while reading to you the position of a man who has clung on to his family life despite having long crossed the age for leaving family life, I am giving you the picture from the Srimad Bhagavatam of one who has failed to advance from one ashram into another. And this is why I am speaking to you, so that all of us may be aware what are the different ashrams and when we should make the natural transition from one ashram to another. You see, the story that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not simply a story that is given in some dead scripture. These verses actually describe living people. Even today, there are many people who are very perfectly described by these 4 verses. It is my own friend's father I see when I read the Srimad Bhagavatam, because his position is exactly the position of this man in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And very often he complains about the position that he has landed in. Why? Because now he is widowed. He is living with his son and he feels that he is being treated neglectfully. He feels he is living in his own house, but although he is living in his own house and he is the owner of that house, he is treated as if he is nothing but a pet dog. Actually, these are his own words. So when I see this pet dog in this Srimad Bhagavatam, I remember his words. Because when he was very upset one day with his son, I happened to be there. And this is what he spoke. He said, this is my house, I am living here. You are actually depending upon me for shelter over your roof. But still, in spite of this, I am being treated neglectfully, as if I am myself a pet dog living in this house. But this is the natural course of events. When a man is useful, when a man is socially useful, when a man is earning, then everybody respects him. But what happens when a man ceases to earn? Then he ceases to have authority, especially in a materialistic household. Because a materialistic household, emphasis is given not on the person's spiritual caliber or station, but emphasis is given on his productivity of wealth or artha. So therefore, when he is no longer actively producing wealth, then naturally his position in life is brought down. Now, why do people cling on so much to family life? They cling on to family life because of attachment. Now, attachment to what? Attachment to two things. Attachment is attachment to pleasure and attachment to the desire to control. As long as we have the attachment to pleasure, as long as we have the attachment to the desire to control, we can never think of entering into another ashram. Why? We want to enjoy life. You might think, how enjoy life? When you are an old man, how can you enjoy life? So I must share with you a true story that took place not so long ago. You see, every morning when I sit in my balcony, just before I complete finishing the chanting of my rounds, when I open my eyes, I see a very old man walking down the road right in front of my building. My estimate of his age must be that he is at least 85 years old. And being 85 years old, he leans forward because his back is hunched and he leans on a stick. And leaning on this stick, he gradually walks down the road till the end of the road and then he walks back. And sometimes his wife is with him. And his wife is almost as old as he is. And she looks probably older than he does. And every morning I see them walking up and down. One day this man, he came to me when I was entering the building and he said, you are a doctor, so I want to take some personal advice on a problem that I have. So I said, fine, do come over. So he came upstairs with me and then he wanted me to examine him. And I examined him and I told him that he had got a hernia. So I said, you have a hernia and it's better that you should get it repaired. Nowadays it can be done under local anesthesia, so you can just walk in and walk out. There is no need for you to actually stay in the hospital. But I discovered that in addition to his hernia, he had another problem. And that problem was that he had an enlarged prostate gland. And that enlarged prostate gland gave him great difficulty in passing urine. He told me that I have difficulty in getting up to pass urine, and in the night I often have to get up 5-6 times to pass urine. So I am constantly bothered by this problem. So what should I do about it? I said, until this problem is tackled, the hernia should not be touched. So it is better that you get your prostate operated first, and after your prostate is operated, only then we can think about doing something for your hernia. So he said, is prostate a very difficult operation? Is it a very complicated operation? So I said, no, now any good modern urologist will do it through a transurethral resection. There won't even be a scar on your body. They will pass a tube up your urethra and they'll take out the prostate from inside, and within 5 days you'll be home. So you don't have to worry about the operation being major or there being any risk to your life. So then he looked at me and he said, Dr. Saab, I want to ask you one personal question. I said, what is that personal question? So he said, I want to ask you because I have heard from many people that is it true that after the prostate is removed, your sex life is affected? For a minute I kept quiet because I said, could you repeat what you said? So he said that is it true that after the prostate gland is removed, your sex life is affected? Fortunately, I was able to keep a straight face. So with great respect, I told him that yes, your sex life is affected because to some extent, after the prostate operation, there will be some effect to your sex life. So he said, then Dr. Saab, I think that I will not get operated. He says, I think I'll postpone both the operations as long as possible and I will think about it some other time. Thank you very much. So at that time I just thought to myself that here is a man who is 85 years old. His wife cannot be very much younger than him. And still his attachment to enjoyment has not gone. In fact, in the United States of America, what they do to old people is that when they are so old that there is nobody to look after them, because actually in India at least children look after their parents. In America they put them in an old age home. So the biggest problem in an old age home is keeping the men and women out of each other's bedrooms. This is a major problem that they have. How to keep old men and old women from having illicit sex in the nursing home for the aged. So this is the nature of a person who even in his sunset years has not lost the taste for enjoyment of the flesh. So how can such a person actually know peace? Actually when I heard this fellow's story and when I examined him and he spoke to me, I remembered the words from the Moha Mudgara Stotra. In the Moha Mudgara Stotra it has been mentioned, Angam Galitam Palitam Mundam Dashanvahinam Jatam Tundam Vriddhoyati Grihitva Dandam Tad Apina Munjatyasa Pindam. That Angam Galitam, the body has become worn out. Palitam Mundam, the hair has gone grey or fallen out. Dashanvahinam Jatam Tundam, all the teeth have fallen out from the mouth. Vriddho Yati Grihitva Dandam, his spine has also given way, therefore he is leaning on a stick. But he says, Tadapi na munjatyasa pindam. But he hasn't given up that bundle of desires. That bundle of desires is still on his back. So he says, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamati. So, if one does not give up one's attachments according to one's stage in life, then automatically one has difficulties and problems. Because actually, what is ego problem? Ego problem means your false ego is changing all the time. Means one day you are an earning man, one day you are a retired man, one day you are father, one day your grandfather. But ego problem means that your false ego has changed. That means from father you become grandfather, from working man you become retired man. But you have not been able to adjust your mind or your mentality to your changing false ego. That is the meaning of ego problem. That means your false ego which is changing has changed, but you have not been able to mentally adjust to your changing position in life. So precisely that is why God has laid down in the Vedic scriptures that a man must leave his home at a stage in life which is known as Sanyas Ashram. Up till Vanaprastha Ashram, one is allowed to remain in family life to the extent that your wife is permitted to be with you. That in the third stage of life, the wife and the husband, they retire together and they prepare themselves for the last stage of renunciation. And after he has prepared himself for the austerities that must come in the last stage of life of Sanyas Ashram, then he is advised to take Sanyas Ashram. Now what is Sanyas Ashram? Sanyas Ashram means that from now on, from that day onwards, the person is considered to be dead. He is considered to be dead. That person, that identity he had before is no more. Actually, he is supposed to perform at the time of taking Sanyas Ashram. He is supposed to not only perform the Shraddha of his ancestors, but he is supposed to perform his own Shraddha. He is supposed to consider that he is dead, that he has been cremated, and after his cremation, food is being offered as shraddh not only to his ancestors but also to himself, because from this moment on he is dead. The clothes he wears are orange colored. Sometimes people ask, what is the meaning of orange? Orange is the color of flame, of fire. When you wear orange colored clothes or clothes which are saffron colored, it means that you have consigned your body and the needs of your body to fire. That means your body is being cremated. That is why you wear orange clothes, to show that the body has been cremated, it has no more value for you. And therefore, considering yourself to be dead, having no connection whatsoever with any previous ashram in life, one is supposed to embark on a completely different stage in life. What do you mean by embark on a different stage in life? He has to have no more connection with his wife. He has to have no more connection with his children. He is to have no more connection with his father or his mother or his brothers or his sisters. He is not to see them, hear of them, or talk to them again. He is even forbidden from even entering the village in which he has lived in the past. And he is not even supposed to travel through the place where he has formerly lived, where he might come across old friends, old acquaintances, or old relatives. From that moment on, that part of his life is over and he is considered to be completely dead. So sannyas ashram is not a light step to be taken. It is a very serious step. And there are different stages of sannyas, and these different stages of sannyas are actually gradations of sannyas from which one can move from one stage to the other until one can perform the final austerities of sannyas ashram. The first stage of sannyas ashram is known as Kuti Chakra Sannyas. Now what is the meaning of Kuti Chakra Sannyas? Kuti Chakra Sannyas means that the sannyasi now has no more connection with his family. He no longer meets his family, no longer lives with his family, but he still lives in a house. He still lives in a house. So Kuti Chakra means one who is a house dweller or one who is a hut dweller. So although he has taken sannyas, he lives in a house. This is usually in the same place or same town or same village where he was living in the past, and he has food either sent to him or prepared for him. That means he is addicted to staying in one home, one house, one place where food is being provided, maybe from his previous family, maybe from other places, but he remains in one place as a Kuti Chakra sannyasi. The second stage of sannyas is known as Bahudaka sannyas. The Bahudaka sannyasi usually does not stay in the place where he was formerly living, his house, village or town. He usually lives in a place of pilgrimage, or he lives at the confluence of holy rivers. And living in a place of pilgrimage or living in a place of where holy rivers meet, he does not live on food that is sent to him from anybody. He lives by what is known as Madhukari. That means living like the bee. You know how the bee lives? The bee goes to one flower and takes some honey, then it goes to the second flower and takes some honey, then it goes to the third flower and takes some honey, and collecting a little bit of honey from each place, thereby it makes its meal. So the Bahudak sannyasi is one who lives in this way, that although he is living in one place, he moves from one place to the other, and it is recommended that his meal should never be from a single household. His meal should be from at least 3 and possibly 7 houses. That means he should go from 3 to 7 houses, asking for a little bit from each of the houses, and together he should combine this to make his meal. And even this meal that he makes is not supposed to be a lavish or extravagant meal. Actually there are 12 Sannyas Upanishads. Out of 108 Upanishads, there are 12 Upanishads which are simply on sannyas. So different Upanishads give different recommendations. Some of them actually recommend that a person who has taken sannyas and who collects food from different houses, how should he collect it? First and foremost, he should never collect food from a house where smoke is coming from the chula. That means nothing should be cooking over there. Everybody in the house should have finished their meal. Not only should everybody in the house should have finished their meal, but all the pots and plates where they eat food should have been turned upside down. That means everybody has eaten their fill. And after everyone has eaten their fill, only then can he approach the household. And even then, he is recommended not to approach the same household again as far as possible, so that he should not become a repeated visitor to ask for food from that household. So this is known as Bahudaka Sanyas. Then we have what is known as House Sanyas, or it is also known as Parivrajakarya Sanyas. And in this form of sannyas, which is known as House Sanyas or Parivrajakarya Sanyas, the sannyasi really begins to do what he has planned to do all the time. Move, move and move. It is said in this Sanyas Upanishad that for the sannyasi there is no coming, and for the sannyasi there is no going. Why? Because he is always on the move. So he can never say I am coming, neither can he say he is going, because he is constantly traveling. It is recommended that he should not stay more than 2 nights in the same village, or 3 nights in the same town, or 5 nights in a city. He is not supposed to stay longer than that period in any place. He is supposed to be constantly moving from one place to the other. Why is it recommended that he constantly be moving? So that he forms no attachments. He should not become attached to a place. He should not become attached to followers in a particular place. He should not become attached to any person living in that town, or to any position which he might be given in that place. So the sannyasi is constantly on the move, and wherever he moves, he always goes and gives the message of God, because that is after all the mission of the sannyasi, to give the message of God to whomever he meets. This is known as Hamsa or Parivrajakarya Sannyas. Then we come to what is known as Paramhamsa Sannyas. What is Paramhamsa Sannyasi? The Paramhamsa Sannyasi is that sannyasi who has dropped